So hello to those of you that have joined us already. My name is Cathy Elwand and I'll be giving a presentation about the work of Partners for Youth Empowerment, or PYE. I'm going to give people about 5 minutes to arrive and then I'll begin. But if you'd like to enter the chat room, and if you could introduce yourself and say a word, how you're feeling now, and something about what you're either working on or studying at the moment, that would be great. Hi Ken, nice to meet you. That's great to have a participant all the way from Canada. So who else do we have online? If you could enter the chat room and say where you are, how you're doing, and maybe something about your work or studies at the moment. So I'm here in the UK in a very small village called Firle in the southeast of England. Apart from working with Partners for Youth Empowerment on the MUS.I.C.D.A.RE programme, I run a youth club here in Brighton, and it's for young people who are refugees and asylum seekers, and also local young people, and we're using a lot of creative arts to bring people together. Hello Dana, welcome to both of you. So I'm just giving a moment for anybody else who is joining us live to arrive. I'll probably start in just a few minutes. But if you just joined us, if you could enter the chat room and maybe check in and say where you are joining from, and perhaps something about your work, that would be lovely. Ken and Dana, that sounds like great work. So I think we'll also have some people watching this afterwards as a video rather than joining live. So welcome to those of you who are joining via video later as well. Just giving everybody a chance to arrive and check in. Okay, I'm going to make a start. So just to introduce myself, I'm Cathy. I'm one of the lead facilitators for Partners for Youth Empowerment. So I run trainings for youth workers, teachers and other people who are interested in using creativity to work with groups. I've been part of the MUS.I.C.D.A.RE project for the last few years, and the project's going to come to an end in June, and we've been bringing together people from many different countries to talk about the power of music in recovery from addiction. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is how you can create safe space in a group using music and other creative art forms. So I'm coming at this from a point of view of a facilitator and a youth worker, and I use a lot of these practices in the groups that I work with, but having met some fantastic projects from around the world who work with recovery, I think all of this really applies to any work with people, because creating safety is fundamental before people feel comfortable to start to express themselves. So welcome, Anastasia. Are you joining us from which country? Great, Ken. I also love kirtans. Fantastic. So we will see some people join during the session. I'm just going to go through this PowerPoint. Hopefully you can all see it okay. So the goals for this part of the MUS.I.C.D.A.RE e-course are, and this is not just this presentation but also through the assignment that you'll be doing after, the goals for this are to increase your understanding of how music and creativity can create safety in a group. And I'm sure you've all got some different experiences of that as well. We're just going to be reflecting on and highlighting a few key things. Adding to your toolkit of activities to use with groups. So I love gathering new ideas, and the more things that we have in our toolkit, the more easy our facilitation is, because we can be very adaptable. And learning a methodology for structuring an effective beginning to a group session. So when you know how to very easily begin a session with a group, the rest of your time together is much easier. So welcome to Maria Eleni from Greece. That's great. It's lovely to have a group of people from all over the world coming together about this. So usually when we start a group session, and usually I work with people face to face, so it's unusual to not be able to see you, and it's great to be able to hear you via the chat, so please do ask questions. But one of the first things we would do is a community agreement. So that's like setting ground rules, but more democratic, and it's more about how do we want to be together in order to achieve our goals? How do we want to be together so that we feel really safe and comfortable to be ourselves? And online environments are very different, but it'd be nice to also keep some of these in mind. So these are ones that we often offer to groups because we know that they work really well. The first one I love, it's no put downs of self or others. So this might sound self-explanatory because most people are polite and don't put each other down, but in my culture, the part of England where I come from, people like to make fun of each other, especially if they like each other, and a lot of young people do that in what they call banter. So just teasing each other, but there's nothing that kind of shuts people down faster when they're taking a creative risk or trying to express themselves than a joke. So it's just to notice not to do that to others, but also very importantly, whenever we're taking some kind of risk out of our comfort zone, that's when our inner critic can get very loud. So just to notice that and try and refrain from putting ourselves down as well. Listen well. So this is the practice of listening from the heart and not just waiting for our turn to speak or kind of instantly analysing what the other person's saying, but really taking in what someone else is sharing. Sharing your reflections. So I like this one especially if a group is diverse and perhaps different ages or different statuses, so that everybody knows that their knowledge and their reflections are valuable to the group, and by sharing that they're giving a gift to the rest of the group. Participate fully. So this means participating to your level in your way, so that you're taking that step outside of your comfort zone, but you're also taking responsibility for yourself and knowing yourself, and not going too far out of your learning zone into your panic zone. So participating fully, whatever that looks like for you. I'm just wondering if you would like to add any agreements for our time together today, if you would like to write them into the chat. So anything that would make you feel more comfortable for this online session. So we always would do that with a group that we're working with face to face, to give a chance for people to make explicit, make obvious what might be assumed or might be missed. So everybody's needs are slightly different, even in a group that you might think are very similar. So say we're working with a group of adults of the same age and race, similar background, there's still going to be things that one person really needs that you might not assume that they don't need, or that might be different to the others. So this just gives a chance for people to put that out in the open at the beginning. And we can also use it as a tool, so to come back to and let our group review, what are we doing really well in our agreement, and anything that you would like to add. And if anybody breaks an agreement that's really important to the group, we can, as a facilitator, hold a space for the group to come up with some strategies to address that. So what we'd normally do is after we make the agreement and everybody's made their suggestions, we'd seal the deal. So we'd sign the agreement, but not with a pen and signature. We would do it by a physical means. So sometimes getting everybody up in the circle, saying, okay, to agree to this agreement, you're going to stretch out your left hand, you're going to raise your right hand, and on the count of 3 we're going to say yes and bring our hands down in a clap. So we kind of sign the agreement in a physical way. So that's one thing to help to create a safe space. So just to give you a bit of background on Partners for Youth Empowerment, what we do is experiential arts-based facilitation training. So we will take a group through some arts-based processes and let them have their own personal experience of that, and then reflect on that experience. So rather than didactic teaching, it's through direct personal experience. We work all over the world, so probably more than 30 partners now in 15 countries. And here are some examples of the countries we've been working in: Greece, Spain, Italy, UK, South Africa, Uganda, Canada, US, India, Korea, Brazil, Jamaica, also France. And it's based on over 20 years of experience. So PYE was founded by Charlie Murphy, who's sadly passed away, and Peggy Taylor, who is still with us and facilitating. And they had lots of experience of running youth programs in North America. And this model of working was based on different practices that they found really effective to create safe space, especially with teenagers and vulnerable young people. So it comes from coaching, the arts, a bit of occupational therapy, and lots of different things combined into this model of working. I'm just going to show you a very short video to give a flavour of PYE's work. So hopefully the sound will be perfect and no technical difficulties. So I'm just going to have to open this video, so bear with me a second. So the video is just loading up, but it just shows some nice images of PYE's work and also some key facts and figures. And we're a charity and not-for-profit that's registered in the UK and also in the US. And we also support running a model of youth summer camps, which are about youth empowerment through the arts and through connecting with nature and through being in community together. For some reason my video is not working today. Let me see if I can find it for you. Okay. Apologies for that. I will ask Fabio if he can send us round the video by email after. It's just very short, it's a few minutes long, so if you like you can watch that in your own time. So just to give an idea of the scale of PYE's work, in 2015 PYE and the partner organisations PYE worked with trained over 5,000 practitioners, so people working with groups. And here's some images. This was a training in Greece with Greek teachers, so people who were working in a statutory education system. And from meeting these teachers, I believe that the system in Greece is even more restrictive for teachers to be able to have time and space to use their creativity when there's so much pressure to teach the curriculum than here in the UK. But they were very open to looking at some arts-based methods to try to bring that into the classroom, to try and make the most of the experience for the students. And this is a training in Spain, the first training we did in Spain a couple of years ago, with some youth workers and different professionals from all over Spain working with young people. And then these practitioners that we helped to train along with our partners then reached over 200,000 young people. So the idea is that we're sharing a way of working that people can use straight away with the groups that they are trying to help. And this is a LifeBeat summer camp in the UK, and LifeBeat was founded by Lucy Six and also Charlie Murphy, who is one of the founders of PYE. And I also work for them and run summer camps for young people. And here's some images from camps around the world with different partner organisations running them. So this model of working is called the Creative Empowerment Model. And there's 4 big ideas or 4 pillars that form the basis of this work. The first one is quite radical and sometimes challenging for a lot of us to really claim, but we are all creative. So all human beings are creative, whether we see ourselves as creative or not. The way that we dress, cook, solve problems, make things, put our ideas and inspiration and imagination out in the world is all examples of creativity and creative acts, and it's not limited to skill or proficiency or profession. So I think in my country there's a lot of emphasis on professional art makers, and then the rest of society as consumers of art. But this is trying to sort of reclaim our right to be creative, and therefore our capacity, our limitless capacity to tap into our musicalness, our visual art capabilities, and really explore all of those art forms. Second one is that you don't have to be an artist to use the arts in your work. which is following on from that idea. So you don't have to be a professional theatre maker and performer to use very effective, easy to lead theatre activities with your groups. Similarly with visual arts, similarly with music and singing. So I don't know if any of you are working with music and music therapy, which is very specialised, but there's also some ways that you can use rhythm and song and different music activities without that professional background to have effect with your group. So that really opens us all up. So say you are a professional music teacher, there's no reason why you can't bring in some theatre activities or some dance activities into your practice, and we can all relax and be quite open about having these things, these tools available to help our groups. The third one is we all have a valid desire to be seen and heard, and that comes from when we were little babies, and you see it when a parent or another adult will talk to a baby and will mirror the facial expressions and the noises that the baby's making, and the baby is content and feels cared for and in good company. And as soon as the baby is ignored, it cries. And you can see that with adults and teenagers and anybody in a group. So as soon as we as humans feel not seen and heard, we act out, and we might withdraw from that group, or our behaviour might change in some way. So the idea of this model is to give people lots of opportunities to be seen and heard, so they feel safe and well held. And the final idea is that the arts are a doorway to the inner life. So inner life meaning our memories, our emotions, our dreams, our experiences in life so far, and having the chance to access our creativity and all the different art forms out there means that we have multiple ways to understand, process and express our inner life. So this model, the creative empowerment model, includes all of these concepts in there. So welcome to Takis and Andreas. Fantastic, lovely to see you here. It's great to have such an international group on this seminar. So just to explain a bit more about the creative empowerment model that PYE uses to create safe space in groups. So it's not a therapeutic approach, but it does create conditions where therapeutic goals can be realised. So when people feel very safe, they can make really positive changes and be able to access their own healing. But we don't work intentionally in a therapeutic way. So by allowing people to feel seen and heard, they feel very accepted by the group of people that are around them, and that creates that safe space where they can work on their own healing. And it allows creative expression, so it allows people to share and process their inner life in artistic ways and explore what's going on for them. And that allows people to build confidence, because taking that risk to put yourself out there in a group and then to be received with acceptance and understanding builds your confidence to do that again, even if it might be a scary, risky thing for you to do. So that step outside your comfort zone, if it's well supported, allows your comfort zone to then expand. And that builds your resilience, because you have increased capacity in yourself, and also the strength of a supportive community in whatever group setting that you're working with to support you. And a lot of the work that we do involves creating this safety in groups of people who are different to each other, so different races or ages or backgrounds, so that once that safety is created and everyone's able to express themselves, there's a real richness of learning available from the different perspectives that people have. So this is a process map, and it comes from the book that Peggy Taylor and Charlie Murphy wrote, which I'll give you the reference for at the end, but it's called Catch the Fire, and it's a much more detailed account of this model of working. And this process map, it could be applied to a 1-hour session or a lesson in school. It can apply to a summer camp or a residential programme, or it could form a structure for a longer term regular programme. But it begins with a warm welcome. So whether it's the way that you greet a class on entering your classroom in a school, teachers that are there early and then can be by the door and like greet each person as an individual, it makes a big difference to if you're meeting your group for the first time and you're going to spend 6 months with them on an intensive program. That first contact is very important. So I really like to get into a space before my group where possible and make sure that I'm ready and prepared, so that all the practical things are done and I can make sure that I'm in a good space energetically to be able to give a really good warm welcome and a good first impression to everybody that comes in. Then to move on to the group contract, so you're thinking about the I and then coming to the we of the group, and the process that we mentioned at the start of doing group agreements allows everybody to negotiate what feels comfortable, and make some agreements with each other, some promises that they're going to uphold and value the needs of everybody else in that group. Then this bit, relationship to self, others, the world. It could be the stages of an activity that you're going to do. So just thinking about how to introduce it in a personal way, then with others, then putting it out there in the wider context. So it doesn't have to be to do with relationship. It could be to do with the climax. The relationship to the world could be performing a piece that you've improvised, but the relationship to self might be doing something individual first, play with instruments, and then working with a partner, working with a small group, to working with the whole group. So you're moving through from relationship to self, others, to the world. And then community celebration, so a chance for people to perform in some way, which doesn't have to be big groups on the stage. It could be pinning up all the drawings that people have done in the session on the wall, and having a chance to say what you really appreciate about other people's creations. But it's a chance for that group to really celebrate each other and appreciate each other. And then some kind of closing. So this could be a kind of checkout where everybody goes around the circle and says one thing that they're going to take from that session and one thing that they're going to do. It could be singing together. It could be writing something for yourself. It could be simply just saying one word each about how you feel, but some way to kind of close that experience. So this arc, it's a very simple model, and different professionals, I think, use different tools to plan, but I like this because it's moving from personal to bigger group, and it's also remembering to begin it very warmly and humanly, celebrate it, and then close it in some way. And I find it very helpful whether it's a very short session, and we're going to talk a bit more about how to begin a session well towards the end of this presentation. So there's a sort of theoretical model that we use within this model that is a recipe for engaging groups. So getting people involved, getting people really wanting to be part of the process, and that is called the IPC. And I stands for imagination. So I was running a training last weekend, and the first thing that we asked people to do when they entered the room after greeting them was we had some tables set up with lots of art materials, and we asked them to make their own name badge however they wanted, using lots of colourful materials, and that meant that they had the chance to use their imagination, as well as having some very gentle interactions with other people in the room. So people that were early had something to do, people that were arriving gradually felt that they went late because there was this activity for them to drop into, and they could meet people in stages whilst they were doing this activity. But most importantly, it was designed so that they can use their imagination, because everyone has an imagination and it's personal to you, so there is no right or wrong, and that means that everybody can participate in their own way. So if you think of something that engages your group's imagination, it means that everybody can participate. A little bit different to informal education, where there is often a right or wrong answer. So if a teacher asks their class a question, you might only want to put up your hand if you know the answer, because you might feel fear or shame that you will get it wrong. But if you tell your group a story, so they're picturing in their imagination, they're already participating. If you play a game where they can think of a movement, and it can be any movement that they want to do, they're using their imagination and they can all participate in that. It's all possible. So once you've got participation, very naturally that leads to commitment. So we have the ability and the willingness to join into the process. It means we're committed to seeing that programme through, that lesson through, whatever it is you're doing with your group. And if at any time you notice your group's commitment and participation is dropping off, perhaps it's become too challenging for them in a way, you can come back to engage the imagination again with a short activity that just reignites that creative part of the brain and gives the opportunity again to participate. So that is a very simple recipe for engaging groups. And these are some tips that PYE recommends for facilitating. So after I did the art activity, my workshop last weekend, the first thing we do is try and get the group to come together in a circle and do a body rhythm together, which I'll show you an example of shortly. But using rhythm is a great way to engage a group, because it's so inherent in all humans. Finding ways to signal the group to get quiet, so to get group focus again. I used to work in a lot of different schools, going in not as a teacher, but doing different workshops. So I'd be meeting new groups all the time, and I was always getting frustrated, saying, guys, shush. And it's a lot of energy giving out. So if you can think of a few creative signals, so it could be a call and response where you shout something and the group has to shout something back, or it could be, I've got here, excuse me, these lovely Tibetan bells, which I really like, for a subtle way to signal the group to come to focus. Or sometimes we have a raised hand signal. So if you see someone with their hand raised, you copy and you ask the group to imagine that there is a string between their jaw and their thumb. So when their hand raises, automatically their mouth shuts and you get quiet. Or, clapping a rhythm that has a call and response. But it just makes it very easy. It's almost magical, because you give the signal and the group is silent. And it also works very well with adults, as well as teens and children. So starting with a blank page, if I do an art activity, for example, the name tags that I was describing to you earlier, I don't tend to make a prototype or an example, because that can sometimes limit people in their own creativity, or it could make them feel, I've got to make that and I can't make that. That's, it's setting a level and a barrier. Whereas if you start with a blank page, you're inviting the imagination in a completely open way. Structuring activities so everyone can take creative risks. So by creative risk, we mean doing something outside of your comfort zone creatively, and you need to feel safe to do that. So you might want to do a very easy activity first that has a small creative risk, so people can warm up to it little by little in small chunks. So rather than say, okay group, we're going to make a performance together and we're going to show it, we might do a free writing exercise that will turn into a poem that will then turn into a performance, so people have a chance to slowly warm into it, which is what we mean by warming the group up slowly. And it's important to meet your group where they're at. Keeping your intention in mind. For me, this is one of the most helpful tips for facilitation. So by intention, we mean what you intend for your group during your time together. So, for example, at the beginning of a session, my intention is to create safe space. So I'll choose and plan some activities, but it might be that the group isn't responding to those activities. But if my intention is very clear, I'm going to create safe space, it's very easy for me to improvise in the moment and choose some other activities from my toolkit that will also meet that intention, rather than just getting lost in the moment or doing something that might seem fun or easy, but it's not as valuable for achieving that intention. Engaging the body. So I think especially in formal education and a lot of professions, we're often in our heads, and engaging the body is very valuable for focusing, energizing, being present, and also moving our emotions. So if we're working with emotions that are distressing or difficult, engaging the body can help work through that. Using mirroring. So I mentioned earlier about being seen and heard, and mirroring could be in a musical activity, or we play a lot of name games which involve somebody doing a movement and being copied, or also theatre games, similarly copying a body position or copying a sound. And that means, so when we do an activity like that, people are using their imaginations, they're sharing something very personal, and then by being mirrored, it's saying that the group really does accept your idea in a very fundamental, embodied way. So you feel really seen and heard. Giving instructions quickly and clearly. So when you explain a game or an activity, where possible, keep the talking as short as you can, and often it works well to do a demonstration with a couple of volunteers so people can see what you mean rather than having to understand intellectually a verbal description. Tip your hat to resistance. So everybody who's worked with groups, I'm sure you've experienced resistance, because however wonderful we think an activity might be, it's not going to fit for everybody, maybe on that day or in that circumstances for that particular person. So you're going to encounter some resistance where people might just not like it or not want to do it or not participate. And it's tipping your hat to resistance is just to remember to not become triggered by that, so not to become upset or angry, or if our own emotions come up as a facilitator when someone's resistant, just to sort of notice that, put it to one side, and just to dance with that resistance and accept it and be like, okay, it's okay, and perhaps come up with something else, or just allow that person just to be, and it makes the process a lot easier. Varying the size of groupings, so if you have a big group especially, it can be very daunting being a member of that new group, to find your place with everybody. So if you have the opportunity to work on your own, with a partner, with different partners, with a small group, with different small groups, you've actually had the chance to get to know the whole group before having to be in a whole group interaction. So that also provides a bit of safety and makes it easy for people to feel part of that community. Providing opportunities to perform, so this could be sharing individual or group work. It could be a gallery of images that you've made. It can be very short and informal, but it's again allowing people the chance to be seen, heard, celebrated, supported. Hello, Machi. This is great. We've got a really nice group here. 9 of us from several different countries. Okay, so we are all creative, and I'd just like you to think for yourselves of as many things as possible that you have done today that are creative, where you have made decisions and solved problems and used your imagination. And it could be that you have been singing, making music, dancing, moving, gardening. It could be that you've been in an office and you've invented something or come up with a solution to an issue. But I'd like you just to sort of take a moment to think about some of those things and just celebrate how creative you have actually been today. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about ingredients of a good beginning. So first of all, why is a good beginning important in a group experience? Well, if you think of some of the groups that you've been part of in your life, and groups where you've really wanted to go back and you've thought, yes, I belong here, this is for me, and even perhaps when you found that group challenging, you thought, yeah, I'm invested in it, I want to go back. Often it's had a good beginning to it, like it's created a good first impression on you. And I think as a facilitator or a group holder, we have to put in a lot of energy at the beginning of a group experience to make our group feel safe, to set up norms and cultures in that group to make it work. And then after we've done that, after we've put in that energy, we have to put in less energy because the group is then self-sustaining, it's set up. It's like kind of pushing a boulder down a hill, and once it's going, it's rolling and it's away. So a good beginning is very important in a group experience, because if somebody has a negative experience early on, it's really hard to get that goodwill back again. So ways you can do this are thinking about the room setup. So before people even arrive, whatever space you have, it might be a space that is absolutely perfect for your session or your program, or it might be a space that is not ideal, but there's always things that we can do to make it more welcoming. If there's a plant we could bring in to have some nature in the room, if there's curtains we can open to make there more natural light. I love to be in a circle to begin, if possible. Sometimes that's challenging in school environments, but just think about your room setup and what would work for your group. Can you put some music on in the background? Anything you can do that would make it inviting. So I gave the example of name tags before, and with my youth group I sometimes put out paper and big paper all joined together on a table and art materials, and when people arrive their first task is to draw how they're feeling today. It gives them something to do and allows them to interact with people around them. But you could think of an activity for people to arrive to, because especially with my youth group, it's a drop-in, so it's different people each week and they need to meet each other anew each week. And they often feel quite shy and awkward, and it removes a little bit of that. So is there something you could set up for when your group arrives? Using rhythm. I really like to start with a rhythm at the beginning, get everybody in sync, get everybody performing together, taking a creative risk together, but something very, very easy and very achievable so they can have a good experience of doing that together. Sometimes I like to include an invocation, so that means invoking or creating a deeper connection with what you are going to be doing together. So it might be that I might read a quote or a poem to the group. It could be a song, something like that, but something that creates a mood. And it might be that a member of your group does an invocation to sort of welcome everybody, get them really connected to that bigger picture of what you're going to do together. Then facilitate an introduction. So it's really important that our groups trust us, because if they don't trust us, they can't feel safe with our support with their process. So if you include in your introduction something to do with your personal story that is real and authentic, and it's also safe and appropriate to share, it will create a bit of emotional resonance with your group, especially if it links to what you're going to be doing together, and why you're passionate about your work. So that credibility, that trust is created. And then I really like to have introductions to be sat in circle and for each person to say something. So you could give them a framework of 1, 2, 3 things to share, and it could even be name and one word how you're feeling, or keep it very simple depending on who your group is and where they're at and where you want them to be. But it's lovely and very important to get each voice into the room early on, because then the space feels like it belongs to us rather than it's the facilitator is a big character and the group is just saying things every now and again. Oh, hello from Crete. Fantastic. Hi, Fortini. Yes, so get everybody to introduce themselves around the circle. So obviously online it's hard to do a lot of this with the platform that we have, but I tried to invite everybody to introduce themselves. So we've had, if anybody's come lately, you can see in the chat everybody has introduced themselves, so we get an idea of who is in our group, even in this online environment where I'm the only one that gets to speak. So yes, so introductions and voice. Then goals. So I shared the goals for our session and also for our PYE assignment. So sharing goals, the idea is that people buy in and they can see the value in being part of that group experience. So the goals should link to things that people really want and are important to people. Then the community agreement, so that's when we have a chance to share and invite the group to say what they want from each other in terms of behaviour, to feel safe, to feel comfortable, to achieve the goals. And then I really love to do some name games, because you can incorporate using the body, sun, mixing up the group, mirroring each other, and also helping people to learn names is removing one of the awkward tasks that we have to do when we meet each other. So it makes it all easy. And if I have time, so if I'm doing like a whole day session or a longer program, I might devote time to doing all of these items on this slide. But if I'm running an hour session, I would keep it to the bare essentials. So I'd make sure the room setup was how as comfortable and welcoming as I could. I would do maybe facilitator introduction around the circle, unless my group is massive, and I would do goals and agreements, and then I would do something to engage the body, so either a rhythm or a name game or something else physical. But you need to think of what is your intention for that experience with your group, and what is the intention of each part of this good beginning, and kind of select what would work for your group and the time you've got available. But I really think putting the effort in to planning and creating this good beginning really makes your life much easier, and it makes the group experience flow. Okay, so just moving on to the next slide. So I mentioned rhythm and body. So I think some of you are musicians. Hello, Christina, welcome. So some of you are musicians, so perhaps comfortable with rhythm. I began a musical journey as an adult, and I remember going to a workshop with a really fantastic facilitator called Eugene Skeef, who is a South African musician and master percussionist, but also very gifted at working with communities. And I still think he's one of the best facilitators I've ever met. And he started his session with no words, and he just began a rhythm. And soon people had just picked up instruments around the room and were joining in. And he described to me that rhythm was like a dusty attic, and even if we didn't use it, or even if we'd never been up into our dusty attic with rhythm, that it was there and we could just choose to go there at any time. And I really felt like that during his session, like it was something in me that I could find if I was, feeling confident to try and had the right conditions. So we've probably been, I assume everybody's been sat down for most of this last hour. So just notice how your body is feeling now and how that's affecting your experience. And just think about, what effect does moving the body and using rhythm have on you? And what effect does it have on a group, therefore? And how can you use this in your work? Because I find as soon as I do an activity with a group, it also gives me a boost as well. As soon as I'm moving around, and if I'm rhythmically linked to my group, suddenly I feel also engaged, enlivened, connected to my group. So I'm going to show you a video of a body rhythm. And this is Charlie Murphy, who was one of the PYE finders who has passed away now, but he was a musician and he's very good at teaching rhythm. But this rhythm is a very easy one to learn. So if you don't currently use rhythm in your work or music in your work, it's one that you could perhaps try out for your assignment, which I'll explain more about later. But it's an easy one to learn, and I'm not having much success showing you videos this time. Let's see, there we go. So this is on, you can also get to this from the PYE website. So I'm just going to play this to you and hope you can still see it. And if you feel to, you can join in at home. And it's something you can also do sitting down.
It's large and small. That's how you get it. So you invite the group to stand up, and you say, we're going to make a group
Just giving lots of affirmation and building up in stages. So that's important because of cross-lateral motion and engaging both halves of the brain. It actually wakes you up. So lots of affirmation.
Now, okay, very good. We're going to stop there for a minute. And I would like a volunteer to think. If I get instructions.
Okay, so I'm going to pause that there. And you're welcome to come back to this on the PYE website, which I can give you. There's lots of resources and videos, so there's links to these and more, so you can see some other activities that you might like to try out. But I noticed that I do feel better and more lively and more awake after doing that just for a couple of seconds, and I guess Charlie's intention with including rhythm and this particular one, because it's got the footsteps in like 4/4, so that's very natural to everybody walking in rhythm, and he gives that as a baseline option, so you can succeed at this activity if you just walk in time with the group, and then if you add the rest of the rhythm, that's fine. If people struggle with it, that's fine too. The intention is doing something together, collectively, synchronizing, that body listening to actually even just step in time together with a circle of people. You're already a group, you're already a community, and you're already taking some kind of small creative risk that's performative together. So there's lots of potential for using rhythm in our work, and I'm sure music teachers and music therapists in this group will have a lot of ideas about that. Okay, so I really like this quote about rhythmicity, and this again comes from Charlie and Peggy's book, but it was said by Henry Mayer, who was a social worker and educator. He said, "It's almost impossible to dislike a person while being rhythmically in sync. Rhythmic interactions forge people together. Rhythmicity provides a glue for establishing human connections." So if that's true, then using rhythm with our groups instantly forges people together as a collective. And Eugene Skeef, the facilitator I mentioned earlier, who inspired me about rhythm, he also does work with peace building and gets people who are communities who have lots of reason historically to not get on with each other. He gets them to play together rhythmically first, and he says that it makes a lot of conversations possible that otherwise would not have been possible. So similarly, voice and harmony, a lot of tools and activities getting people to sing together can be incredibly magical to connect a group. So I'm just wondering how many people have sung yet today. I think I probably did sing a bit in the shower this morning, but I've not sung with a group since the weekend when I was running a training. And they were a group of people who normally didn't sing, and we sang loads. And it had a lovely effect because people were surprised. They were surprised that they enjoyed it, that they made a beautiful sound together. But I think that was possible because our purpose was not to make a beautiful sound. Our intention was to have a really relaxed experience of being together as a group. So I remember first moving to London in about 2007 from a much smaller place in the UK. And yeah, big city, intimidating, and where I was living was very urban, very built up. And one Saturday morning I heard the most incredible singing, and it turned out, and I followed it, and it turned out to be a community gospel choir that was open to sort of anybody singing. And I joined, and I experienced singing in harmony, like really powerfully, and I could feel hairs on the back of my neck going up. And our choir leader, who sang a lot in church, but she wanted the gospel music to be accessible to people of all religions or no religion, as I was, and she said, yeah, it doesn't matter what religion you are, but for me, that experience that you're describing with the hairs on the back of your neck, that for me, that is an experience of God. And they say that singing in a group actually synchronizes our heart rates, because we're breathing in time, and our breathing controls our heart rate. And so after about 20 minutes of singing in phrases, or we were talking about kirtan earlier, chanting together, that actually synchronizes us physiologically, as well as singing together has this spiritual dimension, whether religious or not, but it's included in many religions around the world, and I guess for good reason, because it makes us feel connected. It allows us to feel emotions together, and it could be coming together to grieve or celebrate, but so much potential to use this in your work. I only started using singing with my groups in the last 6 years or so, and I have always loved singing since I was a child, but I've only really sung and performed in front of people more recently, and it's been a sort of long journey, and I meet so many people who have the experience of being shut down or told that they shouldn't sing or that they can't sing, which is very sad, because I think it's something that, again, is part of our birthright as humans, and different cultures have different feelings about singing. Like a lot of African countries, singing is a normal part of everyday life, about expressing what's going on and coming together as a community, rather than just, as I've experienced it in my country, singing if you're good at singing. So I'm going to show you another short film of a song that's from the PYE website, because there's a kind of resource library on there of different activities to use, different songs, and it's my friend Shola teaching, and he shared with me that when he was a child, in school, they were kind of working out who should be part of the school choir, and he was sent off in this direction and told, you should not sing. And he said he didn't sing for years, and he then got involved in creative facilitation and began to sing with his groups. And this is him teaching a song, and he basically loves singing, and he has learned simple formula of teaching songs. That means that he can give a group a great experience of singing. So I would just say to those of you who aren't musicians, music teachers, music therapists, or who don't sing with groups at the moment, that it's something that we can all do, and if it's something you want to add to your practice with groups, it's very possible, and you just need to pick a song that you know really well and practice teaching it with a group of friends or people who you don't mind having a go with, and work out how to give them really clear direction, and then it's all very possible. So I'm going to share with you this other video of Shola teaching a song. Here we go.
Okay, so we're going to sing a song called We're from people of South Africa, and it hails the
Okay, so I'm going to leave it there, but you can see everyone is having a great time, and he followed some simple steps to teach it. He shared the context and the origin of the song, he shared the words, he shared the melody piece by piece, then got everybody singing it together, taught all of the parts to everybody, got people to choose their parts. Rather than saying you must sing this part, say for example it was you know, you were standing in the section of the room where they'd said please sing the low part and you feel like you want to sing high, that's going to cut you off. So he's tried to sort of remove all the barriers for singing, and then he's got everyone doing it together and then adding movement. So yeah, then once people have got it, I guess it's a chance to play with it, play with dynamics, loud and soft. And this is, like I said, somebody who's a friend of mine who shared that, you know, they really didn't feel like they could sing because of what they'd been told in their childhood, who as a facilitator has recovered his love of singing and has learnt to teach songs in a way that gives groups a great experience. And Shola wouldn't call himself a musician, he's a professional storyteller, and he plays percussion and does lots of things, but I've not heard him describe himself as a musician, but he can share brilliant songs with groups. So my message to you is, if it's something you'd like to do, yeah, please do have a go. And just think about what benefits it could have in your work if you're not using voice and harmony work already. Okay, so moving on for that, this is coming to the end of this presentation, but I've tried to give you an overview of what we did in the live MUS.I.C.D.A.RE seminars. So we first of all met with a group of people in Greece, and we had 7 days together, and all the partners of the MUS.I.C.D.A.RE project, including PYE, shared a bit of their work. And I've tried to sort of give you a taster of a couple of the activities, and the background to the model. And what I would like you to do for your assignment is to reflect on an experience that you've had of safe space. Read through all the PYE materials in the MUS.I.C.D.A.RE course pack, which goes through how to set up a good beginning to a session and some example activities, and summarise that so you've had a chance to sort of look and digest and add to your toolkit. And then the third part, which is optional, is to try something out. So whatever you usually do in your sessions, to pick something new to you and give it a go and see if it works. And if you're not currently working with groups and you do want to do this part of the session, because like I said, it's the assignment, because like I said, it's optional, you could perhaps get together a group of colleagues or friends and just try it out, because I think that's a brilliant way to build our practice as facilitators, is just to test things and reflect on it. And then I would like you to share your reflections. So the assignment is about reflective practice, and it's about creating safe space in a group, and I'd like you to email it to me at music.darepie@gmail.com by 21st of March. So you've got just 1 week to do it, which hopefully is enough time, because I know everybody has busy lives, but also not enough time that it becomes something for later. So hopefully that will be okay for you guys to submit something by 21st of March. And then I'll give you some feedback by email. So there's not a right or wrong in any of the assignments for this course, but I will share some feedback on your reflections by the 28th of March. And like I said, part 3 is optional, just if you want to extend your learning, because I realise that not everybody has access to a group that they could practice on. So just in more detail, just to recap, part 1 is reflecting on your own practice or experience of a group. So think of a group you've worked with or been part of where there was safety created. And I'd like you to describe what that situation was, the type, the purpose of the group. How did the experience begin? So we're really unpicking one of your experiences of a good beginning to a session. What activities were used? What was the environment like? What did the facilitator do or say? And I'd love it if you just keep it really brief, so minimum amount of words necessary, but just to paint a picture of that experience. So you've reflected on something that you liked, either that you did yourself or another facilitator, to create safety. And then part 2 is exploring some other tools from the PYE Creative Empowerment Model. So the materials you've got to look at this are the PYE chapter of the MUS.I.C.D.A.RE course. You've also got the videos of the PYE sessions at the beginning of the 7-day seminar in Greece. Is the course pack only in French? Ken, you can, it is available in English. And I believe Fabio has been in touch with you all from Nîmes, but you can ask him for it, but it's definitely available in English as well. And yes, I will send the slides. So you can also access the slides via, if you wanted to look back over this presentation again, it will be available as a video, but I will send the PowerPoint to Fabio to send out. Yes, no problem. Course pack, 7-day seminar, and also there's the PYE website if you wanted to have a look. And I'd like you just to make a list of techniques and activities. So just to summarise that, and reflect on what's the purpose, so what's the intention of those activities, and which ones appeal most to you and why. Because I know myself, I have my personal preferences of what I like when I'm learning or doing something, and that tends to be what I get stuck on giving to my group. So it's really good for me to do things out of my comfort zone once in a while as well, so I can share that with my group. So it's really good to reflect on activities that appeal to you most and why. And then, so part 1 and 2 are the essential part, and hopefully shouldn't take too long. And then part 3 is the optional extension if you want to just practice and try it out and reflect. And this is an opportunity to just challenge yourself to do something new. So maybe you do a lot of creative facilitation with music, but I'm sure there's an area of that practice where it isn't your favourite thing, and maybe you could try something new there. If you want to try an activity that's not a PYE activity but it's something new, that is fine too. I just want to give you an excuse to step outside your comfort zone personally. And yeah, so the objective is to try something new that will help your group session begin well and increase the level of safety and trust. And like I said, if you don't work with groups at the moment, you could try it with a group of friends or colleagues. You could try the video of Charlie leading a body rhythm if you want to. You could try a song, you could try a game, try something with instruments, anything. And then the important part is reflecting on how it went. So what happened? How did the group feel and react? And how did you feel as a facilitator? And what did you learn from this? And what would you do next time as a result? And that for me is the key of how to build our practice as facilitators and people who work with people. Is to sometimes have the courage to do something new and then to reflect on it and pull out the learning. Great. So any questions on that, you can type it into the chat, and you can also email Fabio, and you can also email me. Okay, so PYE website is here, and on there's a resources tab, and you can find lots of activities. MUS.I.C.D.A.RE is a charity in the UK who uses a model based on the creative empowerment model, and it's set up by a lady called Lucy Six, and originally she was inspired by Charlie Murphy, who set it up with her, and I also work with them, and they run summer camps and trainings, and they're all about also putting creative arts into youth empowerment, and you might find them interesting if you're in the UK. And then Catch the Fire, which is this book here, is Peggy and Charlie's book, and it is about it's basically a guidebook to creative community, and it's available on Amazon if you're interested. Yes, so Machi, yes, our video of tonight's session will be uploaded here. It might take a while for it to become visible, but hopefully Fabio will also send a link around so you can watch it again, and as Ken requested, I'm going to send the PowerPoint around as well, so yeah, you can refer to this again, no problem. So we're coming to the end of our time together, and it would be really nice to do a little closing, so I'd like to invite everybody who is in the chat to write one word about how you are feeling now as a checkout. So I am feeling happy. And also, just to extend that, it's been really nice to connect with people in so many different countries. Yes, I'm sure you're doing lots of interesting work in this area, and I'm really looking forward to reading your assignments and hearing a little bit more about your experiences of safe space in groups. So would anybody like to check out? If you would like to write in the chat one word about how you're feeling. So I'm going to write in the chat as well. Happy. I'm going to stay online just for a few more minutes to, thank you, inspired, that's lovely, just to hear everybody's checkout. Excited. Oh, from Dana, that's nice, thanks Ken. Yeah, so I'm going to stay online to hear everybody's checkout and see if there's any questions. Thanks Machi. I just wish that this platform allowed everybody logged in to talk as well and see each other, because that would be even more exciting. It would be even more connection and sharing. Yes, I love Hello Mama Ken. It is a great song. Enjoy, and I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes. And I think it's different around the world, but we have a Mother's Day in the UK, which was last Sunday from Christian tradition. So we were singing Hello Mama and also Belle Mama at the weekend for all the mothers around the world. So it's quite nice. It's always nice to celebrate mothers. Would anybody else like to check out? I think we've nearly had everybody. So I'm going to wish you all a very good evening or morning, whatever time zone you're in. I'm really looking forward to reading your assignments, and all the best with your work.